Welcome to my first ever monthly setup in a Blackout journal. This July theme was quite an adventure, as the first monthly theme in a completely celestial themed notebook. And it's not even for me, it's for someone else. Hi, I'm Erin, and this setup is part of my mystery journal project, which is a journal that I set up for 6 months and then give away on my channel. So I've actually finished all of the themes in this one right through to December already, but you won't see them until the month before they're relevant. I used an A5 Archer Olive Blackout notebook from their Halloween collection last year. Unfortunately, it's not available anymore, and I've based the theme around this paper set that I picked up from JOURNALSAY a while ago. They still have it though, which is kind of amazing. My natural instinct when working on black paper is to gravitate towards things that are metallic and shiny. So for this theme, I thought it's the first one in the journal. We've already done a metallic shiny theme for the new journal setup that covers kind of the overview stuff for the whole journal. Let's try and do something that's not that for this one, just to see how it feels. So it was a little bit of a challenge to myself. I'm using lots of square things. I'm not kind of tearing paper the way I typically would, and I'm working completely with matte textures. The spread I'm starting out on here is a cover page and quote page kind of combined into a cover spread. So the left page will have the name of the month and the right page will feature the quote. I didn't have a solid idea of where I would be placing everything. I'm kind of just experimenting and sticking things down as I decide that I like them. But I did make a mood board page for this in a separate Blackout journal in a live stream with my channel members who very kindly helped me choose the themes for every one of the setups in this journal. I'm using quite a variety of pens in this video. I have these Languo brush pens that are very nice and juicy. They work wonderfully with stamps like this. My stamps were a little bit dirty, so I had to clean them off as I went. I have several packs of these brush pens. They come in color themed packs, and I think I have like 5 or 6 of them. So the blue ones are from a separate pack to the kind of skin toned ones. And I also got all of them from JOURNALSAY, so I'll have those linked in the description, along with everything else that I'm using in this video if it's possible for me to link to it. I could not sing the praises of MT's washi tapes enough when working in a Blackout page journal like this because they're so beautifully opaque. A lot of the washi tapes I've worked with over the years have been ever so slightly sheer, which is not a big deal when you're working on white pages, but the second you lay it over black, you can see here it loses all of its saturation. So there's still enough of a hint of blue in the blue washi tape that I've laid down here that it works enough, but the other kind of beige washi tape I laid down, that one's from MT and it is just really stunning, so opaque. Works wonderfully on black pages, so the more you know. These lovely little moons with their very special details inside are quite difficult to glue to a page. I'm using a glue pen for this. I find it's the easiest way to work with fiddly things like that, but I did get a little bit of the glue on my page, so just rubbed that away with my finger. Hopefully that is adequate. And I'm going to be using these letter stamps for all of the lettering throughout this theme for something very consistent. I love the way it looks. It does take a very long time though, so just keep that in mind if you are aiming towards stamping things in a journal. It's going to take a bit longer than just writing it with a pen, but I think the overall effect is worth it. Naturally, for a notebook that's completely celestial themed, I wanted to go with a quote that was something to do with the sky or heavenly bodies. And this one came up. This is from a book by Taheda Muffy. I actually haven't read Shadow Me, but that's the book this one came from. I have read some of her other books though. The quote reads, "The moon is a loyal companion," and I thought, what could be more perfect for this theme that has a lot of moons in it, many more moons than we really have orbiting our planet. One thing I didn't have for this theme though was a tiny detail that I could use to fill any gaps, so I'm using 2 fine-tipped acrylic markers from Grabie. They're actually from a colouring in set for summer, I think. I'm not probably going to use it to colour in the book, I just really like the way they look on the Blackout journal pages, so I'm using a deeper blue and a lighter blue just to scatter some little sparkles around. Some of them are diamonds with curvy edges and some of them are just 4 lines that don't quite meet in the middle, and then our cover page is complete and we can move on to the calendar spread. Now this journal has a little flaw. Unfortunately, I didn't realize this when I chose it to be the mystery journal, but some of the glue from the binding process has seeped through the pages, and everywhere you get to that center part of a signature, the little collection of pages together where you can see the string, the glue has seeped out and stuck the pages together and left these kind of ugly marks. Thankfully, it reduces as you go through the journal, but it's pretty bad on this spread, so we'll have to see what we can do about that in a minute. In the meantime, I'm just going to go ahead and draw out my calendar. I'm using one of those Grabie pens that I used earlier for all of my line work here. And I definitely recommend when you're working in a Blackout notebook like this, cleaning off your ruler regularly because things can get very smeary if you're not careful. While we do this, let me tell you a little bit more about my mystery journal project. I do also keep a bullet journal style creative notebook for myself that I used for all of my day-to-day planning, but this one is not for me. At the time I started setting this one up, I didn't know who it was for, but I announced the winner for this giveaway a couple of weeks ago, and that winner's name is Nadine, so congratulations Nadine, this is actually your journal. But why would I do this? Well, there are actually a few reasons. One is that I am simply in possession of too much stationery, and this gives me an outlet to use up some more of it. I'm very lucky that I receive quite a bit of stationery for free from brands in exchange for sharing it with you on my channel. But I don't like to have too much stuff around me at any one time, which is hilarious. If you've ever watched any of my vlogs, you'll know that my office is trashed 100% of the time, but I'm working on it. I'm also working on those ugly tear marks in the center here. This is another marker from Grabie. It's actually a dot marker, and I'm using it to cover those marks up with some black acrylic paint. It seems to be going okay. Another reason for making a mystery journal and putting videos about it on the internet is that my own day-to-day planning probably isn't the most relatable for a lot of people. My job is to make videos about stationery on the internet, and that means that my journal spreads might not be relevant to the average person who works a 9-to-5 in an office, for instance. And because I don't know where this journal's going to end up when I'm setting it up, it means that I have to work pretty hard to make sure it's universally usable, which means it could apply to anyone, which would make it better inspiration probably than my own journal for most people. And the third and most selfish reason that I do this is because it helps me to have a video already pre-filmed every month that I can just edit and voice over and put on the channel. So it's a little bit more work in the short term, but it pays off in the long term for me as like a business move, if that makes sense. So I could put all of this stuff together and have all of those benefits without giving it to somebody, but like, what am I going to do with it? I don't need 2 notebooks, so I prefer to then give the journal away to somebody who might actually want to use it for their own, or use it for inspiration for something else, or just keep it as a shelf trophy if you want. I don't know. Once it leaves my hands, it's not mine anymore, so it's not up to me how it gets used. One thing that is pretty handy about a Blackout notebook is that anywhere you make a mistake, you can kind of just color over it with any black pen, and it will make your mistakes disappear. The more matte the pen is, the better though, because if it's a little bit shiny, like the one I've been using, you can see my lights pick it up. In real life, it's a little bit less obvious than that, but filming lights sometimes make things a little bit more visible than maybe I'd like them to be. Our calendar spread is all set up now, so we can turn the page and move on to our next spread. This one's going to have space for monthly goals on the left page and a gratitude log on the right page. We won't have as much space for decoration on these ones, so I'm going to have to be a bit careful. These big pieces of paper are kind of bulky, they do take up a lot of room, so some of them I'll probably have to cut down occasionally, or just be really mindful of where I'm using them. Ordinarily, I would be tearing them up, but I'm really trying to avoid doing that, just as a bit of a personal challenge, and it's making me feel like a bricklayer. I'm really not used to working with all these 90-degree angles. Thankfully, I have these circular moon stickers as well, so those ones are really good to cut in half if you need to fill in a smaller space. I love cutting stickers in half. This one's not a sticker, but same. And for the more rectangular pieces, if something won't fit in the space, I will absolutely cut it down, and I'm sure I'll end up using the other half of this somewhere else, but for now, I'm going to try to keep all the pieces that have a moon on them on the page. Something I really miss when working in a blackout journal is the ability to just grab a Tombow dual brush pen and add a second line highlight. I didn't realize how much I rely on it until I didn't have the option. And I didn't like the idea of trying to do a second line highlight with my acrylic marker brush pens because they have such a wide tip. I didn't think it would fit well in the 5mm dot grid space. So I'm drawing lines instead. This one is very much inspired by Anna from Journal Away. She used to do this kind of thing in her bullet journals a lot when she was bullet journaling and not Hobonichiing, and so I thought this would be a good compromise. Once again though, you've got to make sure you're cleaning that ruler off pretty regularly or things will start to bleed under it, it will start to smear. You just have to be so careful. I've left a little bit of space beside the lines on the left side of my gratitude log here to add the number for each day of the month. And the idea here is that for every day of July, the winner of this journal, or you if you're doing this in your own journal, can add one line about something that you're grateful for. I drew too many lines, and so thank goodness for black paint markers, I'm going to pretend they aren't even there, and I'm going to cover them even better with some decoration soon too. But for now, let's add some space for planning for goals on the left side. I didn't want to just leave this blank when I had all of these lines going on the opposite side, so I'm adding kind of a dot point system and some lines in here just to give the page some interest. I'm not suggesting by any means that you need a different goal for every dot point if you were using a page setup like this. I think that is a lot of goals for a single month. But you could use the extra space to add some more in-depth information about the goal, why you want to achieve it, or maybe how you're going to approach it. This could even just be 2 goals broken down into smaller, actionable steps. I always find it's much easier to keep track of the day of the week rather than the date, so I like to add the initial for the day of the week next to my gratitude numbers as well. So because July starts on a Wednesday, the first one will be W, and so on and so forth through the rest of the month. Onward to our next spread. Truly, the habit tracker was the part that I was the most excited about when I started my first bullet journal, and now I don't keep a habit tracker anymore, but I do think they're important, so I like to include them in the mystery journal, and I think a lot of people do like to have habit trackers in their notebooks and planners, so this is something I will always include in the mystery journal. I have a few go-to habit tracker layouts, but this is probably my most commonly used. It is tiny calendars because they're very straightforward. So this beige line will be a space for the journal user to write the name of the habit they're trying to track, and there'll be a tiny calendar underneath those Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday blue highlighted areas. For each day that they complete the habit, they can circle or color in or stamp or in some way indicate the marker for that day to keep a record of how frequently they're completing that habit. And for the numbers, I'm using the Sakura Jelly Roll in the A5 here. This was recommended by so many people as an excellent white gel pen for journaling in a blackout notebook, and I completely get it now, friends. I had never tried the jelly rolls at all before, but this is very, very good. I always like to send a little collection of the stationery I've used for each theme along with the mystery journal when I mail it off to the winner. This one also included a set of 3 of the Sakura Jelly Roll pens so that the winner also has a pen that will definitely work on these pages, because if you've never owned a blackout journal before, you may not have pens that will work in it, and I want to make sure they can use the journal too. I wasn't vibing this extra space left over on the left and right, but I also didn't want to fill it with any washi tapes or anything, so for something really simple but effective, I'm just grabbing my ruler and adding a tiny little double line on each side to act like a border, joining the top and the bottom parts of the page together. And the right side is a spending log over here on the right page. This will come as absolutely no surprise to anyone who has ever watched just about any of my journal videos before, because I love a spending log, I live for a spending log, and I do it the same way every time because I can't think of anything better. This is actually 2 tables that are exactly the same, just stacked right next to each other. They each have 3 columns. The wider column is item for the thing that you buy. The second one is for category, so you can put it into a category like life expenses that I have to do every month, and expenses related to your car, for instance, or subscriptions, or anything related to a pet that you have. You can categorize things up and tally them up at the end of the month to see how you're spending across different categories. And there is indeed an overall expense tracker for the whole year back at the beginning of the journal that this ties into. So those two work in tandem to keep you on track with your spending. I used to do this in my own journal too. I actually moved it out into its own journal, partly because it was just useful to have all of that data together in a way that I could kind of just leaf through, like this spread is for July and this spread is for August, and they were right next to each other, but also because I like to keep my spending patterns private. So I had to blur out or black out the page when I did a flip through on my channel of my own journals and that kind of thing. So having it in its own separate journal just means that I just don't have to show you that, and I can keep it private, and it's working really well for me. So dedicated finance journal also works really well if you're into that. And I have a video about that in case you want to check it out. It's linked down in the description. In case you aren't already on board with the whole junk journaling memory keeping thing, it's something I personally really enjoy. I have a whole dedicated journal for my own memory keeping stuff at the moment this year. And so I wanted to encourage the winner of this journal, or maybe yourself in your own journal, to bring some of that into your own journaling practice as well. So this is a memories spread, and it can be used in any number of ways. I've deliberately left it kind of decorated but empty. This could be a place to collect all of the junky ephemera that you come across in the month to help remember the things that you did that way, whether that is movie tickets or public transport tickets. Teabag tags are one I'm really into at the moment. It could be a place where you print out photos of all of the wonderful things that happened or that you did over the month and collate them onto this spread. Or it could be a place for long-form text journaling. You could write about your memories of the month here if you wanted to. It is very open to interpretation. But I find it's such a lovely way to romanticize your life. It's kind of taking something like a movie ticket and being like, this memory is important, and I'm celebrating it by including it in my journal and uplifting it from a movie ticket that you might throw away to something important enough to remember. And I think that's really lovely. In a similar vein, this next spread is one I'm just gently decorating and leaving lots of empty space on, because this is a spare spread. The idea behind this one is that I can't anticipate the needs of every person when I'm setting up a journal and don't know who it's for. And sometimes people suggest that I pick the winner and then set up the journal, but that does bring in a whole lot of personal preference stuff that would actually make it more difficult for me to complete this process. So I like it the way it is currently. But just in case there is something that I haven't already included, this page is here to give the winner of the journal that flexibility to add it in even if I didn't think of it. And if there isn't anything extra the winner of the journal wants to add, then they can use it as overflow for their memories page, or just play around with the extra stationery that I sent, and that would be just fine too. Add another quote page or something. This might sound a bit weird, but I actually include these spare spreads in my own journals sometimes too. So when I'm setting up, I'm usually doing it quite early so I can share inspiration with you guys. And when you're looking for something, then you've got resources to go to. And sometimes that means that I don't have a super clear idea of what I need in my journal at the time I set it up. So by adding some spare pages in that are gently decorated but otherwise pretty much ready to be used in whatever way, I'm affording myself that flexibility to still add the things that I want that are together in the pages at the beginning or wherever it is. I do this mostly in my reading journal actually, and I know that it goes quite against the bullet journal method ideology, but it works for me, so I really don't care. Anyway, we're not even working on the spare spread anymore, we're working on the first of the weeklies for July, and I'm going with a pretty standard layout for me. This one's a horizontal setup, which is not my own personal favourite to use, but this journal's not for me, so who's to say that the winner of the journal won't enjoy a horizontal layout? Some people juggle geese. And I still do horizontal layouts in my own journals too. So this one has a little bit of decoration at the top of the left page, which is just divided into sections for 3 days. And then we do 4 days on the right side and some more decoration down the bottom. So it feels nice and balanced. You technically have less space for the Thursday through Sunday part of the week, but I find it still works okay for me. So hopefully it would still work okay for you too. Also, if you're wondering why this one doesn't start from the 1st, we're starting this one from the 29th of June rather than the 1st of July. It's because I like to have whole weeks together in my weeklies, and so I've kind of projected that onto the winner of this journal too. So we're starting here from Monday the 29th of June, then we've got Tuesday the 30th of June, and then we kick into the July dates from there. But more of the week falls into July than June, so this just makes the most sense in my head. Hopefully makes sense to you too. Weeklies are where I do all of my day-to-day planning, so these are actually the most used spreads for me. This is where I've got my to-do lists for the day, it's got reminders for anything that is recurring like bin night or whatever Birthdays go here, events go here, kind of everything goes on the weekly. And because I spend so much time in them, I like to vary them a little bit from one week to the next. So I like to bring that into the mystery journal too, so that it's kind of a sampler for the winner of this journal and for you watching to be like, what kind of weeklies do I like to use? So here's another variety. This one involves just dividing each page into quarters, so once horizontally and once vertically. You can add the names for the days of the week into this in whatever configuration makes the most sense to you, and you will have one extra space that you can use for notes if you prefer, or decoration if you're anything like me. This is a great weekly for anyone who is a bit more of a minimalist, or if you just don't have a great deal of time to spend on setting it up. And if you are a decorator like me, I typically like to decorate the top left box. Sometimes I'll do the bottom right box on the right page, but you can really put your decoration wherever makes the most sense to you. There is absolutely no right or wrong here. There we go, weekly number 2, simple and clean, is the way that you're making me feel tonight. Let's try out another classic weekly. This one is one that I go back to over and over. We're just dividing each page into 4 columns, so you'll have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on the left side, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and notes on the right. And I mentioned this in my last Blackout notebook video, but I really struggle to see the dots on the page. So I've just added a little dot so I know where I'm taking these lines up to here so I don't get lost. And it was good in that I didn't get lost drawing my lines, but it was bad in that I got a bit smeary down the bottom there. Oh dear. I think you can see that I have left some space for decoration above and below these planning sections, so we could cover it up, those smeary parts, but I kind of didn't want anything that close to the boxes, so black paint marker to the rescue. Remember how I didn't want any decoration that close to my boxes? Well, the decorative pieces are kind of big anyway, and I didn't really know where to put a moon, but I wanted a moon here, so I actually get to cover most of my smudges from earlier completely, which worked out really well. We have 2 more weeklies to go for this setup based on the way that the weeks fall in the month of July. This one is another one of those signatures where the glue has seeped through, so I just have a little bit of damage control to do down the bottom. And this one's going to have a horizontal planning space for the weekly, but a vertical decoration style, just to mess with your head a little bit. Your standard A5 dot grid notebook typically has, I think it's 38 dot grid spaces from top to bottom, and so if you divide that by 4, it's like 9.5, so I like to take those halves, leave out the top and bottom square of the dot grid, and divide the rest of those sections so they are 9 dot grid spaces tall each. Again, that's going to leave you with 8 planning spaces, but you can make one of them a note section if you like symmetry, or you can decorate in that space if you prefer to have more pretty stuff on your page. No judgment from me. But I do like to have pretty stuff on my page, so I've factored that in rather than making the space go all the way across for planning. I have a column on the outside of the left page and the outside of the right page, and that's where all of my pretty is gonna go. If you've ever set up a theme using the same materials all the way through, you'll know that this is around about the time that you start to run out of things and you've got to get really creative. So I'm using offcuts, I'm being a bit sparing, and I'm making it work. And as with every journal that I touch, this one has to have the Ruthie Journals layout that I stole from our lovely creator Ruthie. You can find her over on Instagram at ruthie.journals. This one divides each page into 2 columns and 3 rows, and then you can kind of use a grid type pattern to add your planning space and use the leftover squares in the grid for your decoration, and it always looks good every single time. Of course, you could also include a note section in this if you wanted. You could make it symmetrical with the way that everything falls if you did that. I'm not including a note section. I like it a little bit asymmetrical, and thankfully when you're working with large decorative pieces like that, this kind of thing is nice and quick to fill out. It's also not really a horizontal weekly planning layout, and it's not really a vertical one either. It's kind of square, and I feel like that makes it even more universally usable. And with the last of our little blue sparkles placed, that is the end of the setup for the July Mystery Journal in the Blackout notebook. Let's take a flip through all of the pages from start to finish. This was a challenge for me. Obviously the Blackout notebook is a challenge in and of itself, but then to not be ripping anything up, to be using these kind of square decorative elements that are kind of the opposite of what I typically gravitate towards when I'm decorating. I do love a celestial theme, but these ones I found quite difficult to use, so I hope you think it turned out okay. I think it turned out okay. There are so many surfaces of the moon though, it does feel a little bit like playing Majora's Mask. I have plenty more celestial themed journal setups coming your way over the next 6 months, so I hope you're ready for more moons because there are going to be so many more, but most of them will be shiny, and if that's more your thing, I completely understand because me too. I've also been in this DIY journaling game for quite a while now, so if this isn't quite the July theme inspiration you've been looking for, never fear, I have plenty more. Here is a maximalist fairy theme from last year's mystery journal for July, as well as a very clean and classy Art Deco theme I did in my own journal last year. Thanks for planning with me.